Let's go.
Yes.
Okay, let's go. So, like Anna told you in a little preview, this book is called Canoeing the Mountains, and it was written by Todd Bolsinger. He works at Fuller Seminary, which, if you don't know, thanks, Diane, is a Presbyterian seminary. And as we're going through this, if anything really piques your interest here, I found out from a friend who's a Presbyterian pastor yesterday that there are lots of YouTube videos, lots of podcasts out there that this author has done. And so you can go and hear a little bit more in his voice, which was helpful for me. And she said, "Oh, I've taught this book. I'll send you my materials." And I thought, why didn't I call you 3 weeks ago? But that's a whole nother story. If anybody needs some materials for later, we can pick her brain. But first, I want to just ask you, what does the title, what feeling does that evoke in you? Canoeing the Mountains. Anybody have a reaction to that?
Canoeing the mountains seems like it should be portaging the mountains. If anybody's a canoeer,
Yes.
which I have been in my life, you would be doing a lot of carrying your canoe as you hiked up the mountain.
You got to go up. You have to go up to go down. That's for sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to go down to go back up. So
the idea behind the book I thought was interesting in that Lewis and Clark really expected that they would be able to canoe from the East Coast to the West Coast.
So yeah, what the author did is he followed Lewis and Clark's Discovery Corps on their quest to find a water route to the Pacific. And their whole purpose, they went to the headwaters of the Missouri River, and they were convinced that as soon as they got to the headwaters and they stepped over, that they would find a water route to the Pacific. And what did they see instead? The Rocky Mountains.
yeah.
Now, the Rocky Mountains are very different than the mountains they were thinking about. You know, I came from the East Coast. Those are hills. And they knew how to navigate those hills. But when they stepped over and saw the Rocky Mountains, it was like, whoa, what do we do now? Everything their whole journey had been built on suddenly was blown up in their faces. And one of the biggest lessons here, I think, we have to remember that even though they knew when they stepped over that suddenly the water route was gone, they didn't stop. They didn't quit. Even though they weren't in their territory, their guide, Sacagawea, and I've heard lots of different pronunciations, so I apologize if mine offends you. They were suddenly in her territory, and they weren't the experts anymore and had to rethink everything they were doing. And if we go to where we are in the world right now, we are very much in uncharted territory. So if we go to the next slide, Deb's
Okay.
helping me. She's my technology guru. We're going to talk a little bit right now, and in just a second, Deb's going to take this slide down so that she can type on it and we can capture the information. In this uncharted territory of COVID, you know, we all have it in common, but it's uncharted for all of us. So I want you to think about the place that we've landed with COVID. We are very much off the map. We haven't dealt with this before. But since the pandemic started, I want you to think about, we're going to think about all of these things, but just one at a time so that Deb can type and keep up with us. what have we lost? What has been taken from us at Good Shepherd by COVID-19 and the situation it has left us in?
Our building.
The building.
The
Some of
choir.
our
Togetherness.
ministries, some of our outreach ministries, we cannot
Outreach.
go and personally serve people.
Right?
Togetherness.
Togetherness.
Yes, togetherness.
I know the youth group is going a bit insane, not hanging out every week like usual.
Okay. The youth group not being able, that's togetherness for both worship and community. Anything else you can think of that this has taken from us?
Communion's been taken from us.
Oh, yes.
Communion.
Can anybody think of anything else that we're just feeling strongly has been taken away from us?
Sense of safety, I think.
Okay.
I know personally, like, just this whole, like, rest of my year abroad, I kind of feel like, I'm not sure if this is just a church thing or a personal list, but yeah, just everything that I had planned for the summer and spring here. So.
I think that's legitimate.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And not only plans, but planning. This is a time of year that a lot of us are planning for what's going to happen in the summer, what's going to happen with the fall, what are we going to do? And we can't plan if we don't know when things are going to open up. I would say celebrations maybe have been taken away from us.
Mhm.
You know, weddings, graduations, birthdays. You know.
Exactly. We're trying to think of how do we celebrate our senior?
Yeah.
And we have at least 3 at church we need to celebrate. There may be more than that, but how do we celebrate them?
What about funerals?
Funerals as well, celebrations of life. How do we do that?
My sister just graduated from the Air Force, and everything had to be recorded, where usually it's just like this big event where the President of the United States speaks and all this stuff. It's kind of reduced down to a Skype call.
But Liv, I will tell you, the rest of us were really happy to see that flyover that the Thunderbirds shared with the rest of us in this community yesterday. After
I'm sure I saw a lot of people posting about it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's this COVID, the situation has taken a lot of stuff away from us, right? But what are some of the things that it has not taken away from us?
I would say it hasn't taken away our community. I mean, with this community, for me in church or others, because I think we've adapted. I think for some it's been hard who don't really have the technology or don't know how to do it. But I think for the most part, elements of the community have been taken away, but other parts I don't think have.
I would agree.
Resiliency.
Resiliency. That's a good one.
Resiliency.
It's very good.
We're going to test Deb's spelling here. And one of the things, one of the reasons we're making these lists is that part of what we're doing as a community, the visioning committee, we're in this season of visioning with Father Gary. A lot of what we're looking at, this is going to help clear our vision moving forward.
We've lost kindness or outreach in doing things for others.
Say that again, Kathy?
We haven't lost our kindness or our outreach for others in all the volunteer. I check in on a lady who's 84 3 times a week. I donate platelets every 2 weeks. I'm now thinking I should go volunteer for Meals on Wheels because they really need drivers, people to deliver meals.
It hasn't taken away our ability to come together.
It just looks a little different.
Yeah.
Someone did a comment, Margaret, I think it was, that said it hasn't taken away our faith. And I don't think that got recorded.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't see that.
And you got a lot going on there, Deb.
I'm trying.
You're doing great. Any other thoughts on what has stayed the same, what hasn't been taken away?
So
our sense of humor. I think we've kept our sense of humor.
Yes.
Or we should.
Very true.
I love the humor in Mary's sermon today. It's awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think it's taken away determination.
Well, that's a good one.
But another thing I wanted to say about resiliency, I think it has been taken away, but I think it has also been given to us. So I don't know if we're gonna
Getting
get that
to give,
gifted
we're getting
column.
to given in the next column.
Yeah, we're getting there in just
all
a
right,
minute.
Yeah, all right. I didn't know if that's where we were going.
Belief.
Pardon?
Belief.
Belief. Can you say more about that?
Well, it hasn't taken away our belief in being able to keep ourselves in a positive thought process and keeping us in not giving up.
I would say it hasn't taken away our connection.
Like somebody has been talking about, and I have kind of tried to change how I refer to things, because someone was talking about it as we are physically distanced, but socially connected.
Well, and that's going to come up in the gifted section as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to gifted. What has been the gift in all of this?
I have really enjoyed all the recordings and live doing the daily office. It has been amazing. And that is something I hope will continue beyond this.
Yes.
And I'll add Compline to that too, Diane. A lot of, we haven't necessarily done it in our space, but a lot of people have been doing a live Compline, and that's one of my favorite services.
Yeah, me too. And I was thinking that within the daily office, it is one of the daily offices.
So for me,
Compline is great.
It's the reconnection with the word in the absence of the table, which is a sad thing for me, but the gift has been able to hear the word more clearly, listens, be able to speak the word.
I've been gifted of not having to do a horrendous commute.
I think there's a slower pace. It doesn't mean it's less stressful in some ways, but I think that's been a gift that we've all been forced to slow down.
Well, I have
Agreed, Becky.
I have found that this has given me a new awareness of really how much trouble our planet was in, because the pollution is down. You're seeing birds and hearing bees that you didn't hear before. I can walk outside and I'm not inundated with the sound of planes or traffic. Somebody told me they're seeing whales off the coast of San Francisco like they've never seen before. And I just think we're getting some proof now. Well, we've always had proof, but more tangible proof that we are killing our planet. And this is making us stand back and say, oh, yeah.
Agreed, Sally.
That we could experience many worships. I jokingly said the first week we had Zoom church that I've always wanted to be able to go to 3 churches in a Sunday morning. I went here and the cathedral and the National Cathedral all in one morning. So that was neat.
So I would say we've also been gifted with some connection. To piggyback on what Deb just said, Easter morning, Mike and I were able to jump into the service of the church where we got married, where both of our kids were baptized. And so we jumped onto their service for a little while before our service started. And it was a way to connect with kind of our history that we hadn't had since we left there.
I know for me
I
as
have
well.
been enjoying howling.
Okay, and Liv, you were saying something too?
Yeah, I know, it's okay. There's a bit of lag. So I know for me, ever since I moved here in August, it's been like a lot of homesickness, and I have a church here, but I don't really like it as much. It's a bunch of, I don't know, grumbly old British men. I don't know, it's not the same as Good Shepherd. There are no young kids. Yeah, it's just not the same. And so now I'm like, it doesn't matter that I'm in Germany. It's like I'm just as close as anyone else at this point, so I can help Rachel plan things for the youth, and I can catch up with everyone every week. And my family, I can be there for family dinners again and stuff. It's just like, yeah, I'm just as close as anyone else, which is nice. Yeah, in contact with a lot of people back home.
I think part of what Liz is. Go ahead, Diane.
It's okay. I really enjoyed doing the prayer vigil at home, and that's another thing I hope we can do a little of both in the future, be in the chapel or be at home, and could really increase that sort of sacrament.
I also think we are.
To connect with what Liv was saying, it gives us a new ways of connecting with each other. And it's allowed people who were not able to come to service on a regular basis to attend all of a sudden. I'm seeing people who don't come to service regularly because they are physically unable to, who can now be a part of the service. And that's good. That's nice. As well as people who are apart, like Liv, who's far away from us right now physically, but she's still a part of us.
Right. So I think we've been gifted with an awareness of the need to connect with people that can't physically be in our building.
Yes, well said. Somebody else was trying to say something.
Yeah, so I was saying overall the gift of technology has allowed us to do all this stuff without being able to meet physically.
Can anybody think of anything else there?
Well, I really appreciate the giftedness of our clergy, Mary, Anna, and Gary, really stepping up into this new realm and doing a great job.
I agree.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, and look at all of us here right now. We're doing it too. So I'm proud of all of us for taking the leap.
We've all been taken out of our comfort zone, and that's good because it's forced us to evolve and revolve. Sometimes it's more revolution than evolution in how fast this has gone. But it's been a really eye-opening and learning experience, I think, for everybody.
Yes.
Allowed us to expand borders that we never knew even existed until all of a sudden they were gone, and now we're able to reach beyond them.
Or becoming more tech savvy, even if we don't know that we are.
That's true.
Kicking and screaming.
Yes.
again, resilience was mentioned earlier, and I think it shows our resilience. It shows our, being flexible, being agile. And it's just interesting to see what that change is going to be down the road, how this is going to affect church down the road.
And I think another thing, just I don't think that was said, is thankfulness for what we had before and what we'll have in the future again. Once things do reopen, just being able to go outside and meet up with your friends and go to church, all these things that I think everyone just kind of took for granted. I think it will be very special, and everyone will realize how lucky we are and how easily that can just kind of be taken away.
Well said.
How many things we take for granted.
Right.
That's the word I was looking for. I've been speaking German all day, sorry.
Thank you for not speaking German now, because I would be lost.
I think
I was speaking German with my relatives in Minden this morning, Liv.
I think we've unscheduled, and I think it's a gift of time that we've gotten.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I spent most of my time driving Harry to his appointments, and now he just goes on the computer. That's great. I'm unscheduled.
Yes.
But
so,
kids are unscheduled. I really love watching the kids in my neighborhood. They look great. Their bodies are relaxed. They're not running from one thing to another. And I hope we hang on to that.
Mm-hmm. I hope so too. Deb, is it possible for you to put that list back up there for a second?
Do I not have it up?
I don't see it.
Boy.
But my point that I was going to make, whether we can see the list or not, is I think that we have listed many more blessings than we listed things that had been taken away from us. If my count is right. And I think that sometimes we kind of get bogged down in, this is hard. I mean, it's hard. But we need to think about not just that it's hard, look at the blessings we've been given because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said,
somehow I've lost my ability to share.
Oh, join the club. It's happening to everybody. And this is why Deb can work on that and whether she can share or not, and we can keep going, and I don't have to be...
try it again, please?
Excuse me?
Deb, could you try it again, please?
There we go.
There we go.
Is that
okay, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
See how much bigger our gifted list is than what's been taken from us?
I kept having, I think I lost my sharing because I had to keep lowering the size of the type to get our list up there.
To fit it all in, yep.
Yeah.
And no, I changed from only one person can share at a time to multiple.
Oh,
okay.
Good.
So this list that we have created together, like I said, is going to help us clear moving forward, because we have to figure out what is most important to us. So let's go to the next slide. And really let me introduce the book a little bit.
I will give this list, this whole slideshow to Dee Dee so that you can download it from the website starting maybe tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you. So the whole thing that Todd talks about in the book is adaptive leadership. So I want you to think about that word adapt. We've obviously been talking a lot about it this morning. Think about times that you have had to physically adapt to something personally, like time change. We move our clocks forward and back, or if you're traveling and you're in a different time zone, you go to a different country, they're speaking another language. Was that easy for you? Hello.
No.
Yeah. No.
Give
I
us
don't
a
know.
little time to think.
Yeah, no, sorry, I wasn't sure. Yeah, but it's just like a really weird circumstance, I guess. Like having, like, I'm very used to taking care of kids, but then in another language, it's just they ask me a question, I just have to like look at them. But yeah, it's definitely been hard, and especially the first couple of months, I was just homesick constantly, and I didn't have an awesome family the first time, so I had to switch families. So going through that, where I didn't, yeah, just, and also being 17 when I moved, yeah, it was just a lot. I got through. Yeah.
But it took a while. Anybody else? What, these changes, are they difficult? Are they easy?
I don't think change is ever easy, at least for my personality. Big changes, small changes, it's never easy, and you can adapt to some easier than others, and some people are more adaptable than others. I think as you get older, you get tools in your tool chest to help you, but it's never easy.
My last 18 months have been getting used to not having my leg the way it was before the surgery, getting acclimated to the constant pain and the difficulty moving. I mean, I can't take long walks the way I used to. So that's been a really tough thing. And now I can't even go to the gym and ride the bicycles. So that's been a change that is hard to face.
What you're saying is part of the needing to change is grieving over what you can't take with you.
And I think
another part is taking risk. You have to try something new, and you have no idea if it's going to work, and you've got to take the risk anyway. And that's a part of adapting.
Yes,
I think sometimes it's the anxiety. The anxiety in changing, and once you get into the adaptive mode, it's a lot easier, but it's the anticipation and the anxiety of things changing.
I think the fact that this was sudden and a huge change has in some ways made it easier to adapt because we've been forced. What we had has been literally taken away. Therefore, we have to find a new way to live, a new way to relate, a new way to live. And so we are forced to go forward in ways that we would never have imagined possible before because of that. But I think the suddenness and the completeness of the change, it has been truly a revolution, not an evolution. And evolution is much more painful sometimes because it's so long and drawn out. This, at least, while it hurts, and there's a lot of grief because we've lost so much, it still forces us to move into new modes and to look forward because there's no way to look back.
Like that,
and I think there's been a message from the very beginning that the church is not the building.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that we really don't need the building ever to be the church.
Correct.
Yes. And so when we talk about this, you see the definition on the screen. Biological creatures and living systems have to make decisions so that we can survive and then thrive and face those challenges. And Good Shepherd is a living system. So for us to thrive in this changing world, we have to adapt. And we've done a whole lot of technical solutions, which is one of the challenges of adapting. We come up with technical solutions, and that's great. But to try to take us to that missional state where we don't need a building, like Diane was just talking about, we have to move towards these adaptive changes. So, okay, COVID happened and our ability to gather in our church happened. It was ripped away from us. And so we've made the technical solution to go online and do worship and formation and meetings and stuff like this online. That's a technical solution, but it's not the adaptive solution that we want moving forward. One of the other big challenges that we face is we have to let go of our past successes. Maybe this COVID situation helps us do that a little better. Like Nan was talking about, this happened to all of us at once. And boy, so every church is scrambling. We gotta use our technology. We've got to go online. We've got to let go of what happened in the past that made us successful, because this situation we're in, holy smokes, it's different. It's different. So how do we adapt? We've started with the technical. What else do we do?
And to be ready for the fact that this could happen again, and this isn't going to go away.
Right.
You used COVID in the past tense, but it is happening now. It is the present tense.
Right.
And being prepared for something like this again.
Yes.
And I think the willingness to learn from others, to learn not only as our scientists are collaborating, not only across the nation, but across the world, and trying to find solutions scientifically, we as a church are collaborating in a lot of ways with other denominations, other churches, all the way. How do we adapt? What works and what doesn't work? And we're all learning as we go along. And what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another, but there are always lessons to be learned.
Exactly. And going back to part of what Mary said a minute ago, when we're learning, we have to learn how to drop the canoe. Okay? Did Lewis and Clark want to carry that canoe over the Rocky Mountains? I wouldn't have wanted to carry it 10 feet, much less up the Rocky Mountains, right?
Right.
We have to learn how to drop the canoe. We have to learn how to drop what it was we were doing to move forward into our new reality. And as we do that, we're navigating in a place that we're not the experts anymore. We're not. We're doing the best we can. And I think the best we can right now is pretty darn good. But we still have to learn to navigate this changing world. We have to change, and we have to experience loss. And we have to navigate through that loss, because it's not going to be the same.
Hey, Ellen.
Yes?
So what you were just saying reminded me of a passage that I happened to take a screenshot of from the book that I thought might be useful to share. He talks about considering the speed and breadth of change in our world, which is very evident right now. He talks about the importance of having a community of God's people that defines itself and organizes its life around its real purpose of being an agent of God's mission to the world, and focusing on the church's true and authentic organizing principle, which is that. And this concept of when the church is in mission, it is the true church.
What page is that, James?
It's Carl.
Sorry, Carl.
No, that's okay. I don't know. I just took a screenshot of it, so I don't recall the page number.
Well, and that kind of moves us toward the next thing I wanted to talk about too, Carl. As we move from those technical solutions to adaptive challenges, we have to figure out what our deepest core value is as a community, and ask what stays the same and what changes. What is it about us at Good Shepherd that should never change? Is it our worship? Is it our connection? Is it our mission? And by that, I'm talking our outreach stuff in the world.
I think it's our sense of family and connectedness. The service is just a form that we follow, and how we go about it as you go from church to church is always different, and that's okay. I like changing things up. I like the changes we've made with the morning prayer, for example. That's what I came to the church with, was morning prayer. And it sort of takes me back, but it also takes me forward.
And there's certainly a lot of questions about how Eucharist will, even how it will be.
Yes.
If it will be.
What'd you say, Mary?
Or if it will be.
Or if it, well, I'm glad you said that instead of or if it will be. I mean, it's something we really have to look at.
Yeah.
I would not be at all surprised to see the sense of Eucharist changing from the common cup and the common loaf to something different.
Yep.
I think we'll still have it, but I think it will be a different, whether it'll be sharing of meals, full meals together, either physically or electronically or whatever.
Yeah,
well, Mark wrote something in the comments. It said, yes, all the health experts agree that we will experience multiple waves spreading the virus through the states and communities, forcing more lockdowns for the next years or until everyone is vaccinated.
Yes.
Right. So how can we take this situation that we're in, and this is what this whole book deals about, how do we take this situation, take our deepest core values as a community of Good Shepherd, and adapt to the current situation? How do we reframe our vision to those deepest core values? And this truly is a chance for us to get unstuck, because we have to do something. We're being forced to change. And so let's not make it just a technological change.
Right.
And let's look at, you know, what this book, Canoeing the Mountains, let's look at what Todd is asking us to do, and what our bishop is asking us to do by asking people in the diocese to read this book together. So this adaptation calls us to become a missional congregation. And
it's not mission in the sense that we have always thought of mission before, like music with a mission. We've always thought about mission being giving money to food pantry and food to food pantries, or homeless shelters, or that sort of thing. Why are we a church?
I think that, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think part of this is it will help us focus what it means to be in community, because right now we're actually a closed community. Part of that is that technology is the way we're using it at the moment, because of fear of sabotage from nefarious people. But I think the best part about church is openness and including others to join along. And right now we may be able to go out and serve others, which is also great, but we need to figure out how to be an open community. Having a Facebook Live service is wonderful, but it's one way. And so how do we make it so we can be in community in the deepest sense of that, despite not being able to get within 10 feet of each other? And I think that is where the real challenge becomes. And that's where probably our best thinking is going to have the most success.
And one of the things that Todd talks about too, yes, you're right. We need to invite people in, and that is absolutely one of our challenges, because that's what we do. I mean, that's one of the things we talk about, our community, our connectivity. We need to bring people in. And so we need to figure that one out. But as society as a whole has changed from this feeling that, you know, there used to be blue laws. You know, the boss used to know if you were in church on Sunday. And in communities, people would know if you were participating with your worship community, with your faith community. And now we don't have that. And so we have to figure out how to make church important to people again. And I think that part of what you said, Becky, really resonated with me. We're not necessarily trying to make church, the building, important again to people, but we're trying to make the community important and the need to belong to that community important to people. And so these are some of the things we have to think about as we take Good Shepherd into this changing world.
Thanks, Ellen. I think, though, that in order to make church important again, we have to say why. What's the
absolutely
reason, right? And I don't know that we articulate it. We talk about how pretty we do service, and that's not, I mean, it is to a degree, but not really the same. We don't have that in our bag of tricks anymore. So why, and we're not very good about evangelizing. So how do we communicate why church is important and why they'd want to be part of our community? That's going to be tricky too, I think, for us.
I think you're right, and I think that leads pretty well into the next slide. If you look at the list on
now
the
I've
left,
lost my ability to. There, okay.
There we go. The list on the left, especially if you don't have a book, these are the sections that will be discussed over the next 5 weeks. The landscape challenge, your leadership adventure today. The world in front of you is nothing like the world behind you. And Becky, that's exactly where you're going right now. It's different. And we have to figure that out. No one's going to follow you off the map unless they trust you on the map. The next section is in uncharted territory. Adaptation is everything. And then we finish up with you can't go alone, but you haven't succeeded until you survive the sabotage. And finally, everybody will be changed. And so in those sections, the leaders of those sections will go deeper into those areas, Becky. And so I think that hopefully through going through this book and discussing it, that we'll have a better idea of ways that we can do that.
Originally I thought, why are we opening up this book to the whole parish? But I like the idea that we're all called to be leaders in our own way. And so even though this is a leadership book, it calls us to consider our own personal leadership. How do we lead? How do we be church in our lives?
Now, coming from a Roman Catholic background, you know, I joined the Episcopal Church about 10 years ago. What struck me as I began to understand more about it was that I think it's the best kept secret in Christianity. You know, not that this is about sectarianism and, you know, getting people for the Episcopal Church. I don't think approaching it from that perspective is particularly helpful. But I do think that the Episcopal Church absolutely offers something that is rather unique, and that many Christians don't know about it. I didn't know what the Episcopal Church was. The only reason I came to the Episcopal Church was because it had a format of worship that I loved and was familiar with, and that I did not want to give up, even though I was leaving the Roman Catholic Church. And but I discovered so much more, and I think we need to communicate that.
I completely agree. I didn't really grow up in a church. I have like a weird religious background with like a Jewish half of the family, and like didn't really grow up in a church or anything. So when my mom and I started going, just like trying to find a right church where you weren't like expected to already know everything there is to know. Like if you don't grow up in it, in a lot of churches, you're just kind of screwed. If you don't know the songs, if you don't know the verses, if you don't know everything, then you're just kind of left in the dust. The Episcopal Church people like helped us out with like the Green Book versus the hymn book and just stuff like that when we were just horribly lost. And I don't know, I think that's really special that you're just not expected to know everything, and there's so many different opinions, and you're allowed to kind of come in with your own background and your own thoughts about certain things, and those can still be reflected just because of how open the worship is. So yeah, I really like it.
There used to be a thing about you didn't have to check your brain at the door.
Right. So do any of these sections, and they're not chapters because some of the sections have 2 or 3 chapters in them, do any of these areas of the book resonate with your experience?
This is Jim Wolf, and I'm on the phone, so you're not going to see my picture, but let me share. The only thing that was interesting to me is we're talking a lot about, canoeing the mountains, and from the standpoint we need to leave things behind and create new ways. My only struggle with it, having been in this church for 35 years, there was a time when we had, on an average Sunday, over 400 people at our worship service. So I occasionally it dawns on me that maybe we shouldn't forget everything we've done in the past, because there must have been some good things we've done in the past that really brought people into Good Shepherd. And I think occasionally we just need to reflect on that a little bit. Well, how did we do that? Why was that successful? And we've gone through some, good times, and we've gone through some bad times. But I think there's some things in the past that we can look at and say, gee whiz, we were really rocking and rolling when we were in the early 2000s, and there must have been some good things in that. So I think my only concern is from the standpoint of this, and I think it works into what we're talking about. That is, we can look at, there isn't a lot of us, but a lot of us can look at some of those things we did in the past, and maybe we can take advantage of those. And there must have been some good things we did there if we really were, at that rate and really doing that well.
I agree with you, Jim. I don't think that anybody's trying to get rid of everything. But I think that the point the author is trying to make here is that when he says to let go of your past successes, is that if we continue, if we're not reaping the benefit of those past successes now, for instance, and I wasn't a member at Good Shepherd then, but I know that in years past there were many more members. And I guess his point is, if we kept doing the same things that we did before those members joined, and we're not getting the same result that we got then, that we need to look at another possibility. I think that's what the author's trying to tell us.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Alan, on that. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think one of the things, if we just stop and think about it, normally at the adult education or at the faith formation time, we normally get, 5 to 10 people there. Look at how many we have now. So I think even just what we're doing today in looking and sharing with people is there's a lot of good things that we can do that really can improve. To me, it has always been that the key for Good Shepherd was the community and the relationships that we build. You know, for example, in my case, I'm not great at inviting people to come into Good Shepherd, but once they come through that door, I feel like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to keep this person here. So we need people that invite, we need people that welcome, and we need people, you know, we've talked about getting people connected. And if we do all those things well, I think we can grow as a church.
I would agree with that.
I think that Jim has hit on something, you know, very important, which is the problem isn't simply being welcoming once people come through the door, but and I think Good Shepherd is. I mean, my first impression of Good Shepherd, both my husband and myself, was extremely positive because of the welcome we received. But why did we walk in the door? You know, because we are church going people. And that's the thing that has been, we have lost, you know, the societal pressure, you know, to attend church. There was, you know, a lot of books, if you read a lot of books about, you know, what's going on with church attendance today, they talk about the concept of Christendom and the fact that we are in a time of where Christendom is coming. We're in a post-Christendom era. So what do they mean by Christendom? They mean this assumption that we are a majority Christian country and that everybody goes to church on Sunday. You know, that societal pressure in a certain sense of everybody going to church and pretty much expecting everyone to go to church, it just isn't there anymore for a variety of reasons, and we don't need to go into all those reasons. But that's gone. Christendom is gone, and so that's the issue. How do people come into the door?
I was thinking about, Liv, you may be able to relate to this. A lot of my connections in Germany are from the former East. And that wall in Germany came down because the church provided the leadership. So my friends in the former East said, who are have always been good regular church goers, said they all of a sudden had 500 people in church on a Sunday morning because the church was leading the demonstrations. The church was the organizing entity to bring the wall down. A year after the wall came down, I worshiped in the church that had made the wall come down, and they were back to 50 people. It was because the church quit being in the world and making an impact on the world and went back to being churchy. So I think we have a wonderful opportunity to be relevant to people, but we need to decide how we maintain that relevance beyond coronavirus, you know, beyond whatever is the current impact of the church. Because Liv can tell you that church in Germany is not a big deal anymore. It's back to nobody's there, and that's not just the East, it's in the West as well. So, you know, that's what we're talking about here is how are we relevant in the world?
I think that's what he talks about in the book. It's going back to mission and defining your mission. And he says, Missions is no longer one of the numbers of activities requiring patronage and participation that a church provides to Christian constituents, alongside worship, education, care, hospitality, and outreach. But in the words of Alan Hirsch, the mission or sentness of a congregation is its true and authentic organizing principle. And I think that's kind of where we're kind of launching this, is what is Good Shepherd's true mission in the world?
Well, just kind of talking about what Deb said and kind of, yeah. Church isn't a big thing here. There's a really bad like association with it. There's like the stereotype that like if you go to church or if you're like far right, that's kind of the thing, is that you're a Nazi. That's what people get labeled as. It's kind of the ultimate insult here, obviously. So and so I don't know, it's strange because it's just such there's just so much bad stigma around it, I guess. And I think that because of that, people don't realize that there are churches like the Episcopal Church that are really welcoming and open. And yeah, I feel like, especially with Christianity, there's just a lot of like bad stigmas around it that people don't understand. That not all of us are homophobes or sexist or racist. That's kind of the stereotype, especially here, I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
The people, especially different European au pairs that I go to church on Sunday, and they're like, oh, like, why? Like, you don't have to anymore. Like, it's okay. I remember that's what my host dad told me in my first family, that like, oh, you don't have to go to church. We won't tell your family if you're not going to church. I'm like, well, it's kind of my choice. But yeah. So I don't know. And I think that's just important to think about, is that people do have really bad associations with the church. And I think it's just about showing people that, hey, we're a bit different and that we're a lot more welcoming. And also, I think it's a lot better to have, as far as the Christendom, or however you say it, I think it's a lot better to have churchgoers that genuinely believe and genuinely want to be there, rather than just kind of being societally pressured. Like, I think like a group of 100 people who really, really believe it and are really into it and really like want to be there is so much better than 500 people who are pressured to be there and see it as a chore and stuff. Yeah, that's my
Mark?
Absolutely.
Mark shared something in the chat that you all may not have seen. He said perhaps the church could fill the power vacuum currently in Washington, maybe in an informal way. Mission as an organizing principle to help the needy, which is everyone now. So that was kind of an interesting thing.
Right. And so I think as we look at these questions and we look at the sections of the book, I mean, we definitely are learning that the world in front of us is not like the world behind us. I think COVID has thrown us into that and made us experience that very strongly. But does any of these sections that we're going to talk about challenge you or evoke a strong reaction for any of you?
Well, the one about going off the map, if I looked at my own church leadership and I just started to march in any direction, I can guarantee nobody would follow me.
I follow you, Mary. I always follow you. I followed you into a lot of trouble over the years. I'm challenged by you can't go alone, but you haven't succeeded until you survive the sabotage.
I think that has to do with pushback. If you've got a big enough change, I think you're always going to have pushback from somewhere. And without having read the chapter, because I wanted to figure out what they meant by sabotage, but I haven't read it yet. That's what I'm suspecting. We'll see if my guess is right. But yeah, I think in most large change initiatives, you're going to have pushback. And I think that's what that's getting at, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Yes, and you know, that makes me think about the traditional interim periods when congregations are going through a search process and use an interim. Many of them come in and basically blow everything up. And when they blow everything up, they make everybody mad, or at least make everybody mad about something, maybe not about everything. But by the time the new rector is ready to come in, everybody's ready for that new rector to come in. And it kind of makes me think about that process, having been in that process right before I came to Good Shepherd. All right, well, I have some homework for you. So if we can go to the next
slide.
Next slide. This week, if you can talk to someone who will be honest with you, whether advisor, confidant, friend, think about these questions, even if you need to think about them alone. In what ways have you observed my openness to learning?
That's not my Ellen, that's my
you. Right. In what ways do you think you can improve as a learner? When someone has seen you dealing with loss, is it in an appropriate and healthy way? And if you have the book, these questions are in the study guide in the book. And in what ways can you grow to better help deal with your own losses and help others confront their losses? Because like we said earlier, we've all lost something as we're moving forward in the direction that we're going. And some of us feel certain of those losses harder than others.
Wrapping it up.
So think about those either on your own or with someone who will be brutally honest with you. Also, if you have a book and you are visioning or on the vestry, there's some other questions in the book you might want to look at that I don't think really necessarily relate to this group, but they are in the book if you want to do that. And the next section of the book, The World in Front of You is Nothing Like the World Behind You. So next Sunday, Deb and Karen are leading that section, and it is over chapters 2 and 3 in the book if you have one. I am really thrilled to have heard so many voices today. Because
it's been a really good discussion. I haven't got the book yet. I have it ordered, but it hasn't come. So I'm still waiting.
Okay. But I think moving forward, in order to speak as one voice, we have to hear many voices to create that one voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what Karen was talking about, part of what Mary talked about. I mean, all of us have kind of, Jim talked about it, the key to the community and the relationship. Where is our core and what do we need to keep at all cost moving forward? And as the visioning committee moves forward in this time of vision, that's what we have to flesh out. And I think it's important to hear many voices as we do that. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for leading this discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. Great job.
Yeah, great job, Ellen and Deb.
Thanks, Ellen. As I said, I will give this, send this slideshow or this PowerPoint to Dee Dee so that it can, all of you can download it probably as of sometime tomorrow. So certainly by Tuesday, so that while it's still fresh in your mind. You can make notes on the slides about things that came up and things you want to remember.
Deb, thank you.